Welcome to the Becoming Evergreen Podcast, a podcast for leaders who long to grow deeply, live purposefully, and lead from a place of rest. I'm Carissa Fleming.
And I am Debbie Brunet, and we are your hosts. Our goal is to create spaces where leaders can thrive in any season, rooted, resilient, and becoming evergreen. This is episode 1. Woohoo! And as of today, we're going to share who we are, what is becoming evergreen, and reflect on some of Jesus's most powerful invitation about the easy yoke. More to come on that. All right, Carissa, take us away here.
So I think we're just going to start off and introduce ourselves so you know a little bit more about us. My name's Carissa Fleming. I have spent the last, 5 to 10 years in the marketing region. I am a mom of 3, married to Nathan. I've got a couple dogs, Izzy and Peaches. And that's just a little bit about me in general. And my background is that I have a BA in communications from Biola University. I also studied and got my master's in the philosophy of religion and ethics from Talbot School of Theology. And then have spent quite a bit of time going through the Townsend Leadership Program, learning about the transformational power of leadership and learning how to grow and delve deeply into things of the heart to prevent my own burnout, to help lead my family, and just excited about what Debbie and I are putting together here to bring to you. So Debbie, why don't you share a little bit about yourself?
Well, other fellow dreamer here, Chris and I always joke that we are dreamers together. So this is so fun to do this. And so I am currently in the Santa Cruz area, which means I love all the outdoors that I have access to. I am a travel junkie. I love travel hacking. But I also really love talking about what makes people thrive. And I get to do that currently in the corporate setting. I'm doing corporate team building, anything from escape rooms and helping people play and connect to talking about their dynamic as a group and what makes them tick, and do they have the right people in the right places on their staff. Early on, I studied communications. Actually, that's Chris and I met actually at college, more on our floor, but we also ended up in the same undergrad studies of communications. But I ended up studying my master's Christian formation and ministry after doing ministry for a few years and realizing I need some more equipping of how do we actually teach in a way that people transform, not just this knowledge transfer, but how do we set people up to internally transform and integrate everything in their body, mind, and spirit and grow as a person. And I got to do that early on, actually, with kids. I did a lot with curriculum writing and children's ministries and was on a team that planted a church in Colorado. And then towards the end of that, a lot of my background was in team building and experiential education and adventures. And I got to kind of transition to that after that and then pick up what I'm doing now and also get to work in Christian camping as well. So yeah, that's my life in a nutshell. But yeah, just the reality of how do we not burn out ourselves has really stirred some of this, and whatever I'm learning from myself feels incredibly relevant for the rest of the world. All right. So where are we headed next?
Well, I think it'd be really fun. As Debbie mentioned, we both went to Biola University. We have been dreaming, I don't know, for however many years, we're not going to say a year, but we've been dreaming about transformation. We've been dreaming about this idea of becoming evergreen for actually quite a while. I would say since before 2020, we talked about what is becoming evergreen. And Debbie started this amazing company called Evergreen Teams. And so just launching off from Evergreen Teams, just want to talk a little bit about what is becoming evergreen. What is our, how we came together. We've been friends over the years. And again, we've dreamed together for a long time. So excited to be doing this with you, Debbie.
Yeah.
So maybe you can talk about a little bit of what becoming evergreen is and what we're hoping to do on this podcast.
Yeah. Well, for me, it always starts with an analogy because that's just how my brain works. But I actually have the privilege of living in the coastal redwoods. And so living in the midst of these redwoods, there's a couple things that jumped out to me about the evergreen tree in general, redwoods specifically, I'll share about. But there are these amazing trees that are very resilient. They have these fire retardant outsides to their trees that allows them to repel off kind of the most mild and medium fires. But of course, once it gets to a certain point, they still get compromised. But They also are connected through their root system. There's this whole huge network of trees that are connected. That these are really tall, mighty trees, but they're very interconnected in just their root system. And then they also have the ability to handle just fall, winter, spring, any season. From a water standpoint, they have access to water and ways they process water. And this analogy for me kind of stirs what the idea of becoming evergreen is. And I know that's also a phrase in the business world as well. Being able to navigate any season as a human and not burn out and not even just survive, but thrive. That's what we're about. And what does that look like? Both. And one of the things that always pulls up for me, it's not just about what happens in my head, it's what happens in my heart and in my body, in my mind, and just as a spiritual person as well. Like, what does it look like to thrive holistically? And so there's an unseen process to that, and there's a communal process to that. So that is my long answer to that question. What about you,
That's
Carissa?
awesome, Debbie.
What do you think of?
Debbie and I have talked about this idea of becoming evergreen, and she shared that idea of the root system.
Yeah.
One of the first verses in my young adult life that really mattered to me when I was really kind of making some big changes and really making my faith my own was from Psalm 1 and Psalm 1:3. He is like a tree planted by streams of water that yields its fruit in its season, and its leaf does not wither. And all that he does, he prospers. And that idea of not necessarily just prospering, but that we grow fruit, we bear fruit. And that when we are planted in an area where we have support, where we have the nutrients that we need, we're really able to grow into those gifts that God's given us, where you can actually tell by the fruit of our lives what that looks like. And so that's just my 2 cents on becoming evergreen, where I started initially. And so as we process through this idea of becoming evergreen, looking at our vision statement, I mean, we envision a world where individuals are deeply connected to God and to one another. I think we live in a world that is so connected, but yet not actually, like, people aren't connecting on a deeper level in many different ways. People are isolated.
Yeah.
I just think about my own life as a young mom, feeling isolated and having to work really hard to get those relationships. And then as a single mom working full time for many years until I finally met and married my husband. But I've spent years struggling to find those connection points. And so we really want to seek to help other people figure out how to navigate through those tough seasons so that we come out the other side, we're not disconnected, but we're actually growing fruit. So with becoming evergreen, I mean, our goal is to create intentional spaces for connection. We want to equip you, our listeners, with meaningful resources. We want to help guide you on that transformational journey, one that's built on shared experiences, where we can have hope and belief in that wholeness, that it's not just possible, but actually it's attainable. We want to help you grow and to grow evergreen and actually become evergreen. And I think that this applies to people, whether you're 16, whether you're 18, whether you're 59, whether you're, 80. It doesn't matter where our starting point is, but where is our finishing point, and how can we walk through and navigate all of these changes? Because I think we all, we experience so many changes throughout our lives. So that's some of the basics. And I will obviously continue to get more into it. But
Yeah. Well, and one of the things we talked about too is that the model for that is being this idea of an easy yoke that we talk about, and sort of our vision is like part of thriving in every season is having a way of doing things that isn't sucking all of our energy out, that isn't us this like constant spinning of energy, that there is renewal and rest and recharge. There's inspiration, there is vision. But one of our best examples of this, of course, is Jesus with the easy yoke. And if you don't mind, I wanted to just read that really quick, and I'll be curious to hear your thoughts on this as we jump in as well. And so Jesus says, "Come to me, all you who are weary and carry heavy burdens, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you. Let me teach you, because I'm humble and gentle in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy to bear, and the burden that I give is light." And I know there's a couple different translations of yoke. I've heard it taught to from like just the yoke of the rabbi's teachings. as well as the analogy about a yoke and two oxen pulling. And basically the idea is Jesus's way of doing things is restful, is what sticks out to me. But yeah, what do you think about this?
For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. And I just, we've all walked through tough seasons. I have walked through some particularly difficult seasons where I felt like the yoke, even though I was a Christ follower, I've read this verse, for many years. I studied the Bible, but I think in our lives, we just walk through difficult things. And so that idea of that burden on our shoulders, being light, not being heavy, and how do we actually experience God's yoke, right? Do we walk with a sense and a presence of heaviness, or actually do we feel like we are, able to plow that field, able to go into good work, right? I think that's kind of the idea is we're built for work. We want to be able to work in a way where we're honoring our King, but we don't feel like bogged down by the world.
Yeah, and it's funny. It makes me think about kind of why I even went to get my master's in spiritual formation. I had this year of ministry where the way I would describe my mode of operating was it was like full of trying really hard. There were some dynamics that made it especially tough with just a lot of difference of modes of operating with the leadership, and I was kind of caught between that. And then it was a gap year program I was working for, so we just had a lot of student things going on, so just some very natural things that caused stressors. But also just the way I held my own heart and operated, I just felt like I was constantly striving and trying really hard and trying to have the right answer for these students. And so first off, it was this realization of like, okay, I came to the end of myself and realized I have to be dependent on the Holy Spirit and the Lord in order to be effective at all.
Yeah.
And in these dynamics that are hard in a natural sense, like dissension with people or just pastoral care issues, how do I walk with the Lord through this instead of trying to do it myself? And so kind of jumping into my master's, it was not just this head thing for me. It was just like, I'm going to cry. It was this deep heart question of like, how do I connect with the Lord? And I honestly thought, if I don't learn a different way of doing this, I don't know if I'll go back to ministry. Like that was genuinely my question when I came into that master's. And I also had the privilege of being a part of an amazing church at the time that was walking alongside that question too. So I had both the head and heart premises happening simultaneously in both. And anyway, learning a new way of doing things for me made it possible for me to see, oh, I could do this for the long haul. I could do ministry for my life if I'm walking with the Lord. By myself, I'm really not that effective. I'm just not effective. And so I don't think this is a light question for most people, which I don't think either of us feel that way. It feels like kind of the question of like, how do we do this and thrive?
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Yes. I mean, I think as we're going through this, I want to ask, I think the question is, who is this podcast for? What are we going to be doing? We've given you a little bit of background about who we are and why we're doing Becoming Evergreen. We're really, really excited that this is just our inaugural launch. And so who should listen and why? Debbie, who do you think this podcast is going to apply to?
Well, any human who wants to thrive. I think you might be in a leadership role, finding yourself kind of wrestling with burnout. You might find yourself as a mom. You might find yourself as a business owner. Honestly, any human who's asking the question of how do I walk through my current burdens with the Lord in a way that's sustainable? So truly anyone.
All right. Thank you so much for listening. This has been so fun, Carissa. I am excited about the season's podcast and Becoming Evergreen. So what's happening next?
Yes, Debbie, I agree with all of that as well. Becoming Evergreen is here to help you reconnect with God and with yourself and with others in a meaningful way. And we're just getting started. I'm very excited. So if this podcast spoke to you, please hit subscribe and share it with a friend who's also craving rest and realignment. You can watch the full episodes on YouTube and listen on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. You can also follow us on Instagram at Becoming Evergreen, Facebook, LinkedIn. We've got it all. So if you would like some more information, you can also visit us on becomingevergreen.com, where we've got the latest news, updates about retreats, and that type of thing. So Debbie, thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure, and I'm just excited for what's next.
All right. Until next time, we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you for joining us on the Becoming Evergreen journey. If this episode resonated, hit subscribe, share it with a friend, or visit becomingevergreen.com for more info.
Remember, lasting growth doesn't happen overnight. Stay rooted, stay present, and keep becoming evergreen.